Hey viewers, welcome back to Ray of All Trades. We have a casualty of the latest snowstorm. Everybody was scrambling to get their generators fixed. This one, the governor actually came apart on it. So it's already partially torn down. So I can't really show you what it's doing, but basically as it would run, the governor would not attempt to cycle back and forth, and the governor linkage is now dropped down in there, so the motor has to come apart. So because that governor linkage is stuck and bound up inside there. All right, so most likely we're gonna be splitting this crankcase open, so let's go ahead and get the oil drained out of it. That oil looks brand new too. So the motor splits right here. You can see the gasket, you can see the housing right there, you can see that there's a hole that goes through, and there's a bolt. There's a few bolts around there. The problem is this power head is in the way of getting to those. I need to split this case right here. So the piston, the jug, the crank, all that will stay on, the flywheel will stay on. So I'm gonna be attacking it from this side. So I've never taken one of this style apart before. I do know that sometimes these power heads you have to use a puller to get them off, things like that. What I would like to try is just to see if pulling out these bolts right here that are holding the stator on allows me to pull this out without a whole lot of effort. Don't know if it's gonna work or not, but anyway, so we're gonna take off the mounts. Probably gonna take off the cover so that if I do get it apart, this cable allows it to come out. And we're gonna try to pull just the power head off. See if it'll let us. There's a couple of wires on a switch right here. So what we are gonna do, we're gonna mark this on the off chance that something comes apart differently. So let's mark it there, 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 and there. Looks like we're gonna have to loosen up the front motor too. Front motor mounts. Go ahead and take them completely out. Let's see, the brushes will probably collapse when I take this out. There we go. Actually, one of the brushes was caught and broke. All right, y'all. So pulling off this rotor, normally there would be some threads out here, you know what I mean? And then you would put just a longer bolt or something that was larger than the end of the crankshaft in there to, be able to pry against. Well, there's no threads. I can tap threads in there, so we can do that part. My problem is the hole is almost identical to, you know, the threads at the beginning of this thing. And I don't want to mess up the threads on the end of that crankshaft. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is I found another bolt that happens to be the same thread pitch and size. I think what I'm going to do is cut this head off. I will cut a flathead slot into it so that I can push this in with a flathead screwdriver and thread it in, you know, several turns or whatever. Then I can probably cut a piece of stock to make up the difference. We will tap this side and then, you know, attempt to get that out of there. So I think the first thing we want to do though is tap this and see what we get, and then I'll work on getting a, you know, creating something that can thread in to the crankshaft so that we can utilize the threads on the crankshaft. So like I said, I'm just going to cut the head off of this, grind a flathead slot into it, and then use a nice long flathead screwdriver to try to thread this in so that we don't mess up the threads on that crankshaft. Let me find a tap that I can use for this and a bolt so that we can use it as a puller, and then we will attempt to get this pulled off. All right, so I found a M10 by 125 bolt. Seems like it would be a nice tight fit. Let's see, I need an 11/32 drill bit for that. It's actually just under an 11/32, but that's as close as I have. Oh. Pretty much is made for that right now. That's an exact fit. It just doesn't have any threads. So let's see if we can put some threads in there. Let's see, M10 by 125 right here. I honestly just want to see if I can find out what happened to this thing, even if we don't recover it. You know, even if we don't fix it, I just want to see what happened with it. This is going to take a while, y'all. I'll bring you back when I have some threads in here. Alright, so what do y'all think? We've got some threads tapped in here. This bolt right here will fit that. Threads in all the way up to there. It's about half of the threads of the bolt. Then I made this bolt, cut the head off, and I just cut a flathead into it. We're going to try to push this in, thread it into the motor, try to get it threaded in, you know, using that flathead screwdriver. Seems like it's biting. Good. All right, well, it's got some threads in it. Tightened up anyway. All right. And then if we use this, so that's how long that needs to be, and I need room for the threads. So I'm going to cut it just shy of that. Let's put that in. We'll mark it there, and we'll pull, I don't know, about there. Let's cut it off there and see if we can make something work out of that. Shame on me. All right, so yeah, I threaded this in with that flathead screwdriver. Hopefully y'all saw that. I pushed this in, so that was sitting inside there. Then I started threading this in to here, and yeah, y'all missed the magic moment. I'm sorry. Forgot to hit the record button. Anyway, it tightened up pretty good, and then all of a sudden it popped really quick. So it's a tapered shaft on here, and that's why it was so tight. But now I have a custom made rotor puller. I don't know. All right. All of this to find out what happened inside this motor. Yeah, those three I would have never been able to reach sitting behind that flywheel. Is that all of them? Yeah, that's all of them. Get my pig mat handy. Let's clean that up just a little bit. Try to save that seal. Okay. So there's my governor, and I swear it's actually bent, because that should slide right up very easily right now. Let's see if we can wiggle that up out of there. Gonna tap it back straight again. Ooh, boy. Yeah, I would sure like to know how that thing got so bad. Okay, can I get it out? So there's my problem. It's bent. Let me see if I can find another one. I actually got it mostly straight again. I want to check this governor. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the other pieces of the governor. So we found out why the governor wasn't working. Something else just fell out. Oh, another washer. All part of the governor. And pull out the tappets and the push rods. Yeah, so that's what's left of the governor. I'm sorry. That's what's left of the governor. So plastic cam gear. Actually doesn't look too bad, to be honest with you. But yeah, what was happening, it wasn't keeping up. And actually, sometimes when the governor goes bad, it'll just go wide open throttle. This one, luckily, was having carburetor problems, so it wasn't going wide open throttle. Yeah, I got little pieces everywhere. And luckily, this one did not. So this motor might be salvageable if I can get a governor for it. I'm also gonna have to find a brush for it. Let me see what kind of parts are available for this thing. If we can get it going fairly cheap, we'll do it. If we can't, then this thing's going to the scrap pile. Let me see what I can find, y'all. All right, y'all, I found more pieces to this thing. And I was also doing a little bit of research. I still haven't found all the pieces to it, but I did find some more. So I was able to find a new governor rod. I was able to find a new governor itself. The whole assembly, snap ring, all that. I was able to find a set of brushes, is what they're advertised as fitting this thing. I'll probably end up buying a carburetor at the same time, but we might be able to put this thing back together for a reasonable cost. I want to say that the whole thing, I'm under 50 bucks for everything, maybe even less than that. All right, y'all hold tight. Welcome back, y'all. It's been a few weeks. Got some parts in. Brand new governor, new set of brushes, new carburetor. Generally, this is a lot easier when this crankshaft's out. I'm just doing it the shortcut way. So use a couple of picks, like I did, long reach picks, reach down, and I gotta tell you, I worked on this for a few minutes before I started the camera. So don't get frustrated if you don't get it right away. But you have to, wiggle it around, and you're gonna need a couple of picks because you're gonna need one of them to push out while the other one's lifting up. Just so y'all know, I did try snap ring pliers, and my snap ring pliers, and I've got a bunch of sets of them. None of them would get small enough, and the end of this circlip wasn't flat on the end, and so it kept me from being able to reach in there and grab it. So I had to use the picks, and I tried some pretty nice hooks trying to just lift up on this governor and just pop it out of there, which I've been able to do before. This time it did not work. And that's what we're after. And there's my governor. All right, let's open up the bag and see what we have. Governor, gear arm, engine, motor, generator, new, made in China. Yep, aftermarket kit, but let's be honest, this whole engine's an aftermarket, right? So this is probably OEM for this thing. All right, let's compare one for one. Make sure the teeth are the same, the size is the same. Construction's the same. Yep, that looks identical. How about the arm? Yep, I'll give that a win. My keeper, this right here, is in the same spot. This right here is in the same spot. Same angle, same paddle, same everything. Believe that one of these washers is going to go there, because this right here would have been right there, right? So this washer would go on there just like that. And this is the piece that's broken into a bunch of pieces, right? So instead of this plastic riding on these two metal arms, there would be this washer in between. So the washer itself pushes on these metal tabs, and then this rides on the top. This right here pushes or gets pushed on with this governor, right? With the governor arm. You know what I don't see in this kit? I thought it had a ring in it. Yeah, there's the kit right there. It only shows one washer, but it's supposed to have a ring in it. I'm going to look carefully just to make sure I'm not missing something, but it was supposed to have a ring with it. Y'all, I've looked everywhere for this thing and I cannot find that ring. I'm assuming that they didn't package it. My biggest concern was if the ring was stuck down inside here somewhere and I didn't see it, it would cause an issue with the way that the governor works. So these right here are your counterbalances. As this spins around, let's just drop this on momentarily just to show you how this is supposed to work. Right, so this is pushing on this arm right here, right? So it's installed like that. So as this starts spinning faster and faster, what happens is these counterweights, centrifugal force pushes these counterweights out, and when these counterweights come out, if you notice, it pushes up on this arm right here. So watch, when I push down, they spring back together. When I pull out, just the centrifugal force of these counterweights pushing out, it lifts this up. So anyhow, that's how a governor works. And unfortunately, we're going to have to reuse the old ring. I mean, luckily, I got it off in one piece and didn't destroy it. Anyhow, let's get this thing reassembled. We're going to try to get it together without pulling out the crank. Okay, I'm going to drop that washer on first. Washer goes on first. And then the gear. By the way, this is not timed. It can, in other words, it doesn't matter where the teeth mesh up. Then this circlip, I gotta be super careful that I don't drop this. Let's try to manipulate it back in place. If you find just the right size socket, you can sometimes get it started with that. Alright, I lost it somewhere. Oops, there it is. Let me see if I can find a socket that'll fit over that, but that'll still, grab this edge. It's going to be a tight one though. Alright, I found a 6mm socket that just catches that edge, and it just barely fits over the top of that shaft right there. So let's get this centered in place, and then we'll try to use that socket to push it down. Gonna take a little bit of a balancing act because it's just barely on there. Yeah, she's just starting. There we go. That'll get it to go. Y'all can see she's just starting down that path. Alright, that's the end of my socket. Yeah, at least we got it started, right? Okay. There we go. A washer on top of that. And then we're looking at, I don't know, I think that's called a nose? I don't know. All right, let's see. Yeah, the washer moves smoothly. I was just making sure that the washer came with it smoothly. So as this pushes up, it's pulling the washer up. Yep, all that works really smooth. Now the part that I'm really concerned about, getting this piece in. You know, I mean, usually you have everything apart when you go to put this together, so I don't know what we're going to find when we get to this part. But let's give it a try. I said, I'm just trying to be lazy here and not take it all the way apart. Mostly because not that I'm lazy, I just want to see if it can be done. All right, then we're going to end up rotating this crank. Try and get everything to fit. Alright, it doesn't like it that way. Let's turn it all the way around. You know what, y'all? This thing didn't have a washer on there originally. You and I took it apart together. Y'all, I think I'm gonna end up having to pull that crankshaft out. We got the old one out without it, but it looks like I'm gonna have to. All right, so the spark plug's in. Let's get the cover off. .21mm, aka 13/16. So I use the compression of the motor to help hold that back. Let's pull off the coil. Or at least pull loose the coil. And then there is a little bolt right down here that's holding this metal shroud on. We'll leave that loose. We'll turn this like that. Then I should be able to reach there and there. Let me get a puller set up. All right, so the puller I need to use, this air filter housing's in the way. Just get everything as square as I can. And we'll just give it some tension, and if it doesn't pop, then we will just give it a quick hit with the hammer. All right, well, it popped loose. Like I said, if not, what you do is you put it under tension, and you just give it a quick tap with the hammer, and it jars everything. Then we're going to need to take out the woodruff key out of the flywheel. Excuse me, out of the crank that lines up the flywheel. We'll put it with that. Let's clean this up real quick because we're going to be pulling it through that seal. When you've got a tapered shaft like that, the taper itself is what holds everything. So you want to make sure that that stays clean. You know, it needs as much friction as possible. Two 10mm bolts that holds the bottom cap onto the connecting rod. And if you're taking this completely out, the connecting rod, make sure you mark them. Generally they'll have marks on them, but when this goes back together, you see this splash tube right here, or this slinger? Oil slinger? Yeah, I think that's the name of it. Anyway, what it does is it splashes down into the oil that's sitting down here and kind of throws it around the engine every time it dips into the oil. Okay, just like that. Let's just push this connecting rod back up in there, And then we should be able to rotate the crank out of the way. Come on, get your fingers out of there. There we go. Maybe something like that. And push that piston up out of the way. And it should just slide right out. The only thing holding it right now is just friction on any kind of bearings or anything like that. There we go. So it would have just been the friction right here on that friction of that bearing, and that's what was holding it. All of that to get this put in. Yeah, I think there's actually room for a washer on here. Why not just put one on? I say there's room because the next piece you put in is this piece right here, this little clip, and it drops inside that little groove once it's in place. So right now it's kind of, shouldn't have put that on too far. Anyway, we're going to be putting that clip on as soon as we have everything in place. So with that washer in place, we're going to put that little nose right there in place. Make sure that it moves freely. Rotate this so that it comes in contact there. And then we have this little piece right here. So, which keeps it from going too far. You know, there's this little arm right here. So, and then that clip keeps it from coming too far open. Hopefully all that makes sense. Clean up the rest of this. While you're here, inspect your crank journal. You know what I mean? Check your connecting rod bearing. Make sure there's no excessive wear. Make sure you check your end cap for no excessive wear. For wear, what you're looking for is you'll actually see like scratches inside the thing. And that's really what you're looking for. 3M Scotch-Brite. That looks pretty good. All right, we need to get it put back together. So just be careful when you're pushing this in that this metal gear does not break the plastic gear that you just installed, the governor gear. And really the only thing left other than, let's just talk about it real quick. If I wanted to change out the piston and rings, I would just pull off this head right here. You know, pull off the valve cover, pull off the head. You're all the way there. If you had the head gasket and the rings, you could do just a full engine rebuild on this thing pretty quick. So, just be careful putting this thing in that you don't bind anything up. What I'm trying to make sure of is that I do not hit this connecting rod when I'm putting it together, because I don't want to bend anything. And my connecting rod turned just a little bit, but we're going to get it centered back up. That also means that my piston turned just a little bit. So I'm pulling the connecting rod down with the crank until I get close to what I want, so that I can torque these bolts back down. Okay? We make sure that the surfaces are clean, that there's no trash in there. A little bit of blue Loctite so that it comes back out again. When you want it to, I should specify. That's really what Loctite's designed for, right? To keep it in there as long as you want it to be in there. All right, for both the GC160 and for the GX200, which I'm not positive which motor this is, because it's a clone, right? It's both of them are calling for 9 foot-pounds. One of them's like 8.6, the other one's 9. So 9 foot-pounds would be 108 inch-pounds, right? Or 9 times 10 is 90 plus 18, 108. Oops. Feels like I got a little bit too tight right off the bat. Alright, let's try it again. Oh, a dog got all pretty.
Do you think I took her for a ride?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. I thought she just went for a ride.
No.
Alright, so there's the Woodruff key insert. Let's clean that out. Alright, so let's go ahead and put this back on right now, because I had to move it, you know, I had to take this out just because of the puller. I needed to get the puller in there. Make sure this is clean. And it should line up there pretty easy. Okay. And this goes on. This has a little tit that sticks out. Put that on there. And torque that to spec. While everything's so easy to get to, let's go ahead and do this too. Grab a business card for 10/1000ths of a gap. And rotate this until the magnet's in line. And you should be able to tell, because when you go to lift this up, it'll pull back on its own. .84 inch-pounds on these. Make sure the motor rotates. So let's go ahead and get these tappets installed first. Just push them all the way up in there. And we're also going to have to time the motor. So if I have the timing mark somewhere about there, I need this dot to be over here somewhere. Maybe about there. Nope, still off a tooth. Right about there. Yep. Those two are lined up right there. See those two dots? This right here is the channel that goes over the top of this. We're going to put some Durco on here to make sure everything lines up before we get too far. And we'll do a quick look around the shop here just to make sure that we don't have any parts that we're missing. Yep, that ought to work. Make sure this is nice and dry. And I might have to reach up in there and just align that camshaft. It should drop in, but sometimes you have to touch it and, you know, put it in place. So I'll start them in with this little 1/4 inch impact. All right, so keep in mind, this was a tapered shaft and I had to drill it. So make sure that you clean all that out. You know, any kind of drills, you know, any kind of shavings, whatever else, make sure that that's cleaned out. So the rotor just sits on a tapered shaft, just tension, holds it in place. Of course, the bolt pushing against it doesn't hurt, but it's not timed. It doesn't have a key or anything like that. And now's a good time to clean those slip rings if you're, you know, if they're really black or they've got pitting or something like that. Now would be, well, if it's got pitting, you probably should be changing them. But now would be a good time to inspect those slip rings. So here's where I messed up. Remember these brushes? When I took them out, I broke them, right? These brushes right here, one of them broke. So I ordered a brand new one. Claims to be OEM parts, Yamakato. Oh, what do you know? It was a 2-pack. All right. I got 2 sets of OEM parts. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Now let's see what it takes to change these out. Wow, is that supposed to be loose like that? That's weird. All right. That bolt was really loose. I think we'll be careful putting that back on. Okay. So it does have a plus mark there. It does have a minus mark there. It looks like it would be identical. So that one goes here. We'll see where it broke. That one goes there. Tell you what we'll do. We will put this in after everything else is in. That's probably the part that I'm missing. The fact that I should have pulled that out. All right, so if this is the bottom of the motor, this obviously is the bottom of the generator housing. All right, let's rotate it back up so that we have gravity working on our side. Yeah, she's going to be something like that, it looks like. I'm positive that this is supposed to seat flush against those bearings right there. So that's what I'm working on right now. Quick little that'll work. And I would imagine this needs to be as square as possible. Let's run these in with this loose, light duty 1/4 inch. Okay, and then let's give it a couple taps each direction and see what it does. Let me grab a square. Let's see. I would imagine that I need to be square to that housing. Yeah, she's square. Alright, so here's my brushes. It should go right through there into the slip rings. Oh yeah, there we go. Yep, had I pulled the brushes first, I wouldn't have had a problem. Silly me. That was a $10 mistake. Y'all, did this have a washer on it? I don't think that thing had a washer on it. I don't know if this thing had a washer on it. What would it hurt if I put one on there? That would pull everything tight, right? Let me see if I can find one. Alright, I just found a little washer. I would just think it makes sense. You know, it'd be something for that head to slip on just a little bit. And then we want these louvers facing down, right? So any kind of rainwater goes out. All right, while it's still out, let's go ahead and get the carburetor, governor, and all that stuff hooked up. Push rods, all that. Then we'll mount it in the frame. A little easier to work on that way, right? Carefully pull off this cover. Oh, nice. Very good. Okay. So one push rod goes in there. All the way down to the tappet. The other one goes in there. All the way down to the tappet. Yep. I can see him, you guys can't, right? And then all you should have to do is push down on the valve and rotate the rocker over. I mean, you can loosen them and, you know, move it over that way, but with small engines, usually you can just take and push them down. All right, while we're here, let's go ahead and set top dead center and get our valves adjusted. All right. Simple fact that both of these are loose right now, I know I'm on top dead center, because if I was on top dead center in the exhaust stroke, this valve right here would be compressed. All right, let's get these valves set. So this is my intake side, carburetor's over here, exhaust is over here, so this is the exhaust side. Intake side is 6 thousandths, plus or minus 1. And the exhaust will be 8 thousandths. Let's get those set. That's a little bit tight. Wow, that was tight. Okay. Loosen up the 8mm, set my valve lash, grab a 14 and hold it in place. And generally I'll leave it a little bit on the loose side because when you go to tighten it up, sometimes it'll tighten up your lash. Okay, let's go with 8 thousandths on the exhaust. Yep, a little bit tight. Let's get the carburetor on and then get the governor on. Let's go ahead and get these gaskets changed out. Y'all give me a second to get these cleaned up so we have brand new gaskets and clean surfaces. Alright y'all, we need a gasket here first. And this block. We'll put this coil wire in, all that stuff later. All right. The next thing is going to be, yep, that's the right size. All right, so it looks like it fits on there like that. Y'all agree? Which would be like that. Which would mean that this hole here lines up with that air groove that was around there. And the carburetor goes next. That gasket. Then a spacer plate. Let's see, how much of this can I get to if I put this on? You guys still see if I put this on? It'll help hold it all in place. So unfortunately, the choke lever, the guy who owns this has the choke lever right now. Let's see. So I can't really do anything with it. I can keep it wide open, but it must be a choke lever that's elevated somehow. Anyhow, it should fit right on top of there. You know, it goes right on that shaft, and then that pin goes into this piece right here, and that's actually what turns the choke. Okay. So we might have to leave that off for the time being. What I'm scared of is I don't want to damage that that gasket that's on there. You know, I don't want to damage that. Let me find a couple of washers. Let me see, will that fit? Oh yeah, let's just use the washers from the governor. We'll put that on there for the time being. Luckily, the spring for the governor was still in the hole it came out of, I hope. And let's see. So if this was in the carburetor, the right spot, like that, looks like it should have gone probably to this furthest hole right here. So it should be in that one. Let's loosen up the carburetor real quick. Now I'm just trying to mock this thing up and make sure I've got it back where it used to be. Alright, so drop this in there. Okay, if those are like that, then that would mean put this governor spring on here, right? Looks like it wants to go that direction. Then there should be a spring, probably that hole, connecting over to this hole. Nope, maybe connecting over to this hole. Alright, so if the carburetor's sitting wide open, I want to go fully clockwise on the governor, right? So that's all the way back. That's all the way clockwise. That bolt goes in there, and there should be a nut for that. How about this? How about this nut right here? All right, I'm gonna tighten it up. All right, if it's correct, it should be in the relaxed position of being wide open right now. It's because it's ready to start, and you should have room to be able to move the governor all the way like that. All right, let's get it put back inside the cage, and then we'll finish, hooking everything up and put some oil in it and give this thing a test run. Hit them all. All right. I know that this connects to that air filter somehow, so I gotta figure that one out. Maybe on there. Yeah, let's figure that out before we get too far, because if I get that wrong, I'm gonna have to take it back apart again. Might as well take this off now. So I'm not gonna be able to use it. Not with that on anyhow. Oh yeah, just like that. Since this appears to be the only one that's critical, let's get this one tightened up first. Here's our oil shutoff, or oil sensing unit. Get that hooked back up. Still have to fix this wire. So this one goes right there, but this one was the broken wire that went right here. Oh y'all, I just remembered something. I forgot this actually leaks. We gotta fix that while we're here. So let's get this apart, see if it's salvageable. If it's not, we need to order one. One step forward, two steps back. Yeah, that looks pretty rough. That might have been, I don't know if it was leaking there or if it was leaking out of the body here. Of course, that screw was loose. And that one too. Metal spring was okay. I bet you it's this thing. Let's see, let's get this out too. Should have taken it off, this part off before I pulled it out. Sorry y'all, camera died. I'm hoping this little GoPro does the job. I'm seeing a whole lot of stuff that shouldn't be here. I have another valve, but it doesn't fit, right? So this one's a male thread. This one would be a female thread. So, and it definitely doesn't fit. I am kind of curious though, if internally it's the same, you know? Can I steal these pieces? So this is the sediment bowl. Could have been leaking there too, because this gasket looks terrible. But yeah, this one wasn't doing anything. Because I'm going to need a sediment bowl. Yeah, that's going to be the wrong size. I'm going to need a sediment bowl gasket, and I'm going to need this gasket. You know, the selector one. Yeah, that looks like it might work. Might be able to steal that one. Let me clean this up a little bit and get my gasket kit so I can find some O-rings that'll fit this and maybe one for that. And let's get this thing reassembled, see if it still leaks. Alright, so I found a, looks like 5/8 by 3/4 by 1/16 nitrile O-ring for the bowl, sediment bowl. Okay. In the off position, nothing. On position. Alright, that should do. Let's find a gasket that'll stop this from leaking. I think the other problem is this nut shouldn't be all the way down like that. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this should be up here somewhere. And then when you thread it in, then you lock this to hold it in place. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the leak or not, but, and this is what used to be in there. Let's see if we can find a nice big O-ring that'll fit that. All right, so here's what my problem is. If I put an O-ring in here, and I found several that'll fit. If I put an O-ring inside here and tighten it up, anything that gets past the threads, you know what I mean? Anything that gets past the threads, the O-ring would be able to seal it, you know, from this to the top of the tank. But what's going to stop it from running down the thread itself? And that's what's making me wonder if maybe I should use this original threaded grommet or washer and probably put some sealer on there, you know, fuel resistant sealer, and maybe that'll help seal this thing up. So I was thinking of a Teflon tape, but I don't have any gasoline resistant Teflon tape on hand. So let's just put some sealer on here. We'll thread this thing back down on it, and then put it in that way. Because this is not a great seal, you know. But if I put some sealer on there, that'll definitely help. All right, so run this down as far as it'll go. Let's get some sealer in there. Get that all smeared around. We'll run this nut back up a little bit so we have some room to mess with it. And then we'll put this back on, make a giant mess. And then put that sealer on those threads. Definitely not the best way to do it, but I mean, why won't it work? Up that direction right there. Yeah, why not? All right, so I just need a fuel line to go from there to there. Preferably one with a filter, because I noticed inside that tank is not necessarily the cleanest. So let me get something assembled real quick. Yeah, I think that'll do. Make sure it doesn't hit anything. Yep, that'll do. All right, let's get some oil in this thing. So that would be 1 quart, actually just under. Let's open it up. Oh, we're over full. We took quite a bit more than 1 quart out of it. There we go. Right at the bottom of the threads, looks like it would be a full dipstick. All right, so I put a gallon of gas in it. Let's go ahead and turn the fuel on. Look for leaks. Just let this sit for a minute and see if it starts running out of this thing. Yeah, without a air filter and an air filter cover, which he has, I'm gonna not be able to tune this thing very well. Ideally, I want to make sure that when it goes to stall that the governor arm moves and that it kind of runs. So, because what would happen before is it would start and immediately shut off. So he had a carburetor problem, but he also had a governor problem at the same time. All right, let's let it sit for a little bit and then we'll come back to it. All right, y'all. So because I don't have the pieces, I'm gonna have to use this as my choke. I'm just gonna use the screwdriver and just turn it back and forth. Right now, choke's open. And if I turn the screwdriver, choke's closed. So I'm gonna have to use that as my choke for right now. We don't have an air filter, so that's obviously gonna make it run kind of funny. But specifically, I'm looking to make sure that the governor works like it's supposed to. All right, y'all. Power switch is in the on position. After we get it started, we're going to come back here and look and make sure we have the 120 volts. It's going to need to be adjusted, I'm positive, because we don't have the air, you know, the back pressure. What I'm really looking for though is, does this governor work like it's supposed to? And it is brutally cold outside today, so we're not going to have this door open very long. Alright, let's see. Let's close the choke. Did you see the governor move? It didn't go very far because it was just running out of gas, but yep, did exactly what it was supposed to do. Let's turn it back on, make sure that it at least turns a drill or something. And I got a grinder plugged into it. Let's see. I'm hoping to not have to turn that choke again, but I think I do have to, because it's kind of a pain to turn. All right, choke's on. Yep, we'll call that one a win. Yeah, that'll do it for this little 4,000 watt generator. I don't even know what the brand is. A GEN4000. Maybe a Sportsman? Real quick while I have you, what I'm looking for is 60 hertz coming out of the power. Maybe just a little over 60 hertz. And what I'm going to be doing is adjusting this screw right here to get my 60 hertz. So it's just going to raise that governor, you know, the throttle open just a little bit, just back a little bit. I'm going to be fine tuning that to get my 60 hertz. And that's basically all you're after. So yeah, we saw the governor is working now. Starts easy as long as you have a choke control, you know. Fuel's not leaking out of our rebuild here. Had good power coming out. Oil changed. Got it back together. Hope y'all got something out of the video. I really appreciate you hanging out. I'll catch you guys on the next one.